The badge says Volvo, but boy, it sure doesn't look like one. That's this week on Motoring 99.
TSN's Motoring 99 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
This week, Motoring 99 has traveled to Gothenburg, Sweden. Hello, everybody. You know, this is home to Volvo, for many, many years considered the safest car in the world. It was also one of the dullest, and that included some of the people who drove it. But hey, these days, you can't hang your hat alone on safety. It seems every new vehicle today has got like 15 or 20 airbags. So Volvo woke up and said, you know, we need a new image and maybe create a little excitement for our cars. Well, the first step was to introduce the C70. And here in Gothenburg, we're going to get our first look at the S80, the newest member to the company's ever-growing family. 1993, Paramount Studios in Hollywood. Volvo unveils its environmental concept car, better known as the ECC. It was a hybrid vehicle that showcased advanced automobile technology. But little did we know that the design cues of the ECC would be the inspiration behind Volvo's newest and largest car, the S80.
When we started the design of this car in early 94, we said that yes, let's have the ECC design cues as a prerequisite to start with for this car.
We felt it gave us a chance to try something new for Volvo's form language. And if we were going to do something different, we might as well do something really different, radically different, and now is the opportunity to test it out in public.
Volvo has always been known for safety, but it didn't taste good enough. So what we have done now, and that was a very hard prerequisite, to add desirability into the design. We think that doing this rear end, that for instance that we have done on this car, very distinct, that will keep us distinct enough to be recognized on the crowded marketplace.
There may be people who have been buying Volvos for years will look at it and say, it doesn't look like a Volvo. Does that concern you?
Well, it would, because they have mainly said, and this is the critical thing, what they've said is, well, you know, I can see it's a Volvo, but don't ask me why. That's exactly what we wanted, a sort of almost subconscious recognition of the Volvo brand. Once they can see, even as I said, subconsciously, then they know it's safe, they know it's reliable and everything else Volvo stands for.
I thought we had done a very progressive design of the car that could take a little bit to get used to, but I can see now, and that is what has surprised me, they are taking the car to their hearts much quicker than I thought they should do.
Volvo believes the S80 is its safest car to date. The long list of items include a whiplash protection system that is activated in rear-end collisions, side airbags, and an inflatable curtain aimed at reducing further injury in a side impact.
What we're going to see are two S80s. The first is a 2.9, it's called, and it's a double overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder engine. 201 horsepower, normally aspirated engine. The second is a T6, which is a twin turbo, 2 light pressure turbos. Again, double overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder. Those cars are going to be available in Canada. We estimate that we're going to retail approximately 500 cars by the end of 1998. With a split being about 60% of them being T6s and the remaining 40% being the 2.9s.
With the S80, Volvo is now for the first time competing in the crowded but lucrative luxury segment.
What's going to happen is a lot of baby boomers are beginning to move out of their sports utility vehicles and are looking for an alternative. We've offered them our SUV alternative. We've offered them the all-wheel drive cross-country. Now there's a lot of empty nesters that are also looking for an alternative, something to get into, and are looking for something a little bit different.
This is a major investment we have done for the company. It's not our life or death, but it's a very vital product for our future existence. But if we're lucky, it could go very well for us.
Curvaceous bodywork, funky taillights. How can this be a Volvo? Have these people forgotten where they came from? That's coming up later on Kenzie's Corner.
In 1956, Volvo had padded dashboards. 12 years later, all cars had them, encouraged by an act of Congress. In 1959, Volvo became the first mass-produced car with safety belts as standard equipment. 9 years later, all cars had them, inspired by an act of Congress. All told, Volvo had 6 important safety features before they were required by law. At Volvo, we were committed to safety before it became mandatory.
This week on Test Drive, we take a look at the Mazda Protege. Now, this vehicle is very important for Mazda. First of all, it's their #1 seller, but more importantly, it competes in the compact class. And this class accounts for over 40% of all new car sales. Is this car up to the job? We intend to find out. Given the significance of the Protege to Mazda, you'd expect to find a lot of benchmark engineering in and around the new car. You will, for the most part. Start with the 2 new engines. If fuel economy is of paramount importance, take the base 1.6 litre 4. If you want some semblance of performance, take the optional 1.8 litre motor. It delivers 122 horsepower and 120 pounds-feet of torque at just 4,000 RPM. From a functional standpoint, you have plenty of torque anywhere between 1,500 and 5,500 RPM thanks to Mazda's variable inertia charging system. From a practical perspective, the power shows up for work early enough to be of use throughout the operating range. A problem that's common to every single manufacturer is trying to counteract noise, vibration and harshness, particularly when it comes from the engine. Well, Mazda have taken a very novel approach with the new Protege. The entire front bumper acts as a vibration damper. Because it's rubber mounted, it oscillates at exactly opposite to the engine. The result? When you're sitting in the car with this engine running, you barely know it. The suspension uses McPherson struts up front and Mazda's twin trapezoidal link arrangement in back with stabilizer bars at both ends. The level of control is well above the expected norm in this class of car. Body roll is kept to an acceptable level, likewise for understeer. The secret lies in the fact that the front roll centre has been lowered while the rear roll centre has been raised. This action allows a quicker response to steering inputs and a much crisper feel to the car in general. As for ride comfort, it again ranks right up with the rest of class. Inside, the Protege has been well thought through with but one clanger. There is no tachometer offered. Now that's an important gauge if you go with the manual box. That aside, the radio sits well up in the centre pod, the glove box is huge, and the coffee cup holders are adjustable. Elsewhere, the front seats are nicely contoured, the rear seats split and fold for improved versatility, and the trunk is large and offers a nice low liftover. For a compact car, the Protege has got a lot of room in the rear, and that's because it's been well thought through. First of all, rather than mounting the seat on the floor, they've mounted it on the side sill in the tunnel. This lifts it up and gives you lots of toe room. You've got plenty of knee room, and in spite of the fact they've lifted the rear seat by 18 millimeters, there's enough headroom even for 6-footers. Now, in the event of a T-bone, what they've done is added a special hook mechanism to prevent the door from joining you in the back seat when you get T-boned. Stopping power comes from a disc drum setup that delivers quick stops and a good pedal feel. The only flaw is that ABS is not a universal option. In other words, it's not offered on the base car, which is not a very smart move. That's it for this edition of Test Drive. If you're in the market for an economical, affordable mode of transportation that offers a lot of interior room, particularly in the back seat, the Protege should be on your list. It is also now the equal of the Civic and Corolla, but therein lies the rub. This being the newest model, it should have been the benchmark, and sadly, it's not. It's time to introduce you to our 3 new long-term testers. First up, we have the Nissan Altima, a car that seems to have been overshadowed by its competition. The question is, does it deserve to be? Next, we have the all-new Suzuki Grand Vitara. While it looks very much like its predecessor, that's where any and all similarity ends. Last and by no means least, we have the Volkswagen Passat. Now, we were impressed in the short term. Will we be in the long term? Time will tell. One thing's for sure, the Passat will still be doing very well long after the shine has come off the Beetle's apple.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns squealing or crying tires. I'm sure you've all heard cars going around cloverleafs or off-ramps with the tires crying like crazy all the way around. Any tire will cry when it's near the limits of its adhesion. However, what I'm talking about is that annoying, often embarrassing situation where you're cornering your car at rather moderate speeds and the tires are crying like crazy. There's a number of things that can cause that situation. First and foremost, low inflation pressure will do it for sure. So the first thing you should check is to make sure that your tires aren't underinflated and correct it if they are. Secondly, if the wheel alignment is out of spec, it can cause that as well. So get a wheel alignment done on the car. Caster, camber, and toe, if they're out of adjustment, can cause this situation. Now, all cars toe out on turns. That's built in or designed into the steering arms of your car. Now, it's not adjustable, but it is readable on an alignment machine, and if you've got a bent steering arm, that could be your problem as well. Now, any tire will cry if it's cracked, crazed, or weather checked badly. In other words, if it's too old. And it doesn't necessarily have to be worn out either. This tire still has some tread depth, but it's cracked and crazed far enough to make it cry like crazy regardless of what the inflation pressure or alignment is. Or it could be as simple as just adjusting your driving habits. Don't push that car quite so hard around the turns. As a matter of fact, if you do, you're using up those tires quicker than you should. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Formula One, I think, is the ultimate dream of anybody who's been a car freak. These guys could take somebody who's never driven a racing car before and sit them in a Formula One car and have a sort of meaningful experience in it half a dozen hours later. It's an awful lot of money. There's no two ways around it, but it's an experience. I mean, you know, what is it the Russians are charging? $25,000 is it to go for a flip in one of their MiG-23s or something? I don't know. For a car guy, this has got to be just as good, maybe better, because you actually get to drive the thing. And if you look around at what they have here, I mean, it's an astonishing array of personnel and technology and everything else. It's a very classy act, you know.
The Honda Motor Company has always been a leader when it comes to manufacturing quality cars. But like other companies, Honda realized there is money to be made in the truck market. So in 1995, with the minivan segment booming, Honda got its feet wet with the Odyssey. Good vehicle, but too small. Honda was not about to throw in the towel, and now they're back with the all-new and improved Honda Odyssey.
Size does matter. People want the larger van. They want the V6 power. So the new van meets all those requirements. It has a V6, it has the double sliding doors, it has all the space that people need now. It is probably more of a North American vehicle. The original Odyssey was a little small for the needs of North American people, but the name has good equity, so we've decided to keep the name.
This new minivan for Honda is the largest V6 engine in the class, 210 horsepower to be exact. It has versatile interiors, like a magic seat. The third seat folds completely down out of the way without having to take it out of the vehicle. The center seat is what we call a convertible center seat. You can have a center bucket situation or a center bench configuration, so that's very flexible. There's a lot of space inside the vehicle. The dual power sliding doors are available on the EX trim level. Dual sliding doors, non-power, are standard on the LX model. Traction control is on the EX model. CD player, all kinds of amenities that consumers have asked us to build into this new Odyssey are available for them.
The Odyssey will be manufactured exclusively in Alliston, Ontario. Honda hopes to sell 12,000 vehicles in Canada and another 60,000 south of the border. Now that's barely a ripple compared with Chrysler's sales of about 600,000 annually in North America. So the question is, can Honda make money?
Well, you have to realize it's a brand new plant that's building these, and we're just starting up. So the 72,000 is based on one shift. The plant has a capacity of 120,000 with 2 shifts. So can we be profitable? We certainly are not going into this to become a benevolent organization. Of course we're going to be profitable at it. But it's not going to happen overnight. Like, we have to get up to full capacity first. In 1982, Honda Canada sold 747 vehicles. From there, where have we gone? We've got a factory now that's going to have capacity to build 330,000 units out of a total that's going to be built in North America of 1.1 million. So the commitment to Canada is certainly there, because over 30% of our production is going to be here. We're going to sell close to about 110,000 vehicles in total this year. So have we grown from 747 units to over 110,000 units? Absolutely.
You know, there's very little not to like about the new Volvo S80, but I do have a pet peeve. And if you do the shopping in your family, you might tend to agree with me. It's back here in the trunk. Now, most sedans and minivans have this great mesh net that goes along the back of the trunk. You put your groceries in there, keeps it from falling all over the trunk. Well, Volvo hasn't ignored that issue, but they've come up with this kind of contraption. It hooks in here, it's got all sorts of configuration, but it's really a pain in that, well, let's just say it's awkward. All right, it's now time to head to the garage and join Bill Gardner. Bill?
This week I want to talk a little bit about fuel pumps. If you have an older car that has a carburetor, you likely have a mechanical fuel pump located under the hood of the car, right on the engine, delivering 4 to 6, 7 psi approximately to your carburetor. But that's usually older cars built from the middle 80s and back. Today's cars from the middle 80s and up typically are fuel injected. As a matter of fact, all cars today have fuel injection, and 95% of those cars have electric fuel pumps located inside the fuel tank. Now, today I've got a fuel tank out of a 1985 Chrysler built car. You can see the rust that's on it. It's been under the car for all those years, and rust is something you have to deal with. Now, the pump is located inside the fuel tank on just about all these cars today. You have to be careful taking these out and guide them out so you don't damage them. And there it comes. There's what it looks like. This is what we call the pump and sending unit assembly. Starting out at the bottom here with the strainer. This pre-filters the gas that's going to enter the fuel pump. That's the actual electric fuel pump right there. There's the 2 electrical terminals, the power wire and ground wire, and it's secured on there, in this case with a little hose clamp. Over here you can see the float for the fuel tank sending unit. This is what drives the gauge on the dash of your car. There's a little rheostat in here. This float goes up and down with the fuel level to make that gauge read properly on the dash. You can see the output line with the hose clamp securing it here, and a couple of return lines back into the tank here. There's the O-ring that seals it, this neoprene O-ring right here, and a couple of tabs to locate it, and there's a lock ring or cam that locks this into the tank. There's the output hose and the return hose, and you can see the wiring plug over here and the pump wire located right here. And don't expect to get a whole lot of warning when your fuel pump starts to fail. In some cases you may get stumbling or stalling in hot weather in extreme cases, or you may, if you're real lucky, have a severe performance problem where you can drive the car into the shop but it won't maintain road speed properly. It just doesn't have the power and stumbles and surges. But by and large, the typical fuel pump failure in this type of pump assembly is a complete failure where you have to get the vehicle towed in. So if that's the case, call the tow truck. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 99.
This is the most typically Swedish location you can possibly imagine. That's the town of Marstrand across the channel, an old fishing village, a beautiful place. We had lunch there today with the pickled herring and the Gevalia coffee. I tell you, those Swedes know how to eat. And this is the most typically Swedish car of them all, a Volvo. Now wait a minute, you might ask, how can that be a Volvo? It doesn't look like the box it came in. There isn't a station wagon version of that car. It's not even rear-wheel drive. Now, 5 years ago, Volvo told us that rear drive is the way to go, but this is a front-wheel drive car, and soon it'll have all-wheel drive as well. Now, how did Volvo get here from where they were? Well, frankly, they had to go outside. Their chief designer is from England. The guy that designed that particular car is an American. The interior design chief is from Mexico. Somehow, Volvo brought these people together to design a typically Swedish car, but with international appeal. Oh, sure, you can still order a birchwood interior trim package that looks like the furniture we all bought in 1962, because Volvo realizes that the Swedish values are important to that guy that had the leather elbow patches and the pipe and the Birkenstock sandals. Now, he's not going to refuse to buy a car like this just because it's pretty, but it's also got to be safe and environmentally friendly. So Volvo realizes that for this car to be a success in the luxury market, it's got to sell as well in Montreal and Monaco as it does here in Marstrand. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, it might be said that with the S80, Volvo's lineup is now complete. They've got a car for everybody's needs. Well, the designers here in Gothenburg have told me they've got some future car designs planned on this new, larger platform, so stay tuned for more. And stay tuned for the next few weeks as Graham Fletcher will be getting behind the wheel of the new S80 on Test Drive. That and more as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
This is a really important vehicle for us because, as you know, the Sidekick had been around for 10 years and it was time for a major change. And Toyota really had them, RAV4 and Honda, they've had big numbers. Their sales have been tremendous in there. But we're back into the market right now. We're going to come back fighting with this new V6, and it's going to be fun.
I couldn't say that everybody will ever wear all their seat belts all the time. It would be nice. It'd make our job easier at times.
TSN's Motoring 99 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.